You might as well come out.
Jessie? What's going on?
The next time you visit, I'd really appreciate it if you called first.
That doesn't answer my question.
It's all really quite simple. You see, Quark, your mother and I, are in love.
Set a course for love.
Ah, yes. One of your earth emotions.
Glad I found you.
Let's get married.
Delete the wife.
Welcome back, Star Trek fans. I'm Nicole, and with me is
Joe.
And this is Deep Space Love, of course, the show where a husband and wife team of Trekkies explore love and romance throughout the final frontier. How you doing, Joe?
Great. How are you?
I'm also good. I'm really excited because I think it's been a few episodes since we've had a guest appearing on with us, and tonight we have a guest.
Love having guests. Who's with us today?
Hello.
Hi.
I interrupted you. You were going to interrupt me even further.
You're so excited. No, with us
Love
today
the eagerness.
is Jessie Earl.
Mhm.
If you don't know Jessie, she's a YouTuber, filmmaker, writer, and member of the Trekkie community. And she helped co-author the book Navigating Trans and Non-Binary Gender Identities by presenting her research on transgender representation in cinema. Her gleefully geeky YouTube channel, Jessie Gender, focuses on discussing issues facing the LGBTQ community, transgender-specific community, women, non-binary, and autistic folks, as well as other social and political issues through a pop culture lens. So, you've already heard. So, welcome to Jessie.
Hello. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for coming on. We're happy to have you.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm always down to talk more Star Trek.
Yes.
I'm always ready.
Hearing that intro, though, you have done so much.
Mhm.
It's the accomplishments are interesting to listen, and it's so cool to hear the things that you've been able to accomplish and
A variety.
on your YouTube channel and the writings and the work that you've been doing. So it's admirable.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Yeah, no, it's been fun. It's been the past few months have like shifted more from I kind of do a balance between, queer topics, trans topics, and political content, and then also try and do fun and geeky stuff. And it's been shifting more towards political stuff just given the way the world's been going lately. So it's nice to like have moments to be like, hey, let's just be nerds and talk nerdy stuff.
Yes, although as with most pop culture, we sometimes can't escape even like the mirror that pop culture holds up to our real world, but we can get into that later.
Oh, for sure. I mean, to be honest, that's why I love pop culture, because it is like a mirror for our society, and why I like talking about these sort of things, because it allows us a way to look at what we're doing and what our society is today in a way that's more fun, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Yeah. And actually, I feel like that might lead into possibly part of your answer for one of our first guest questions that we like to throw out, just to kind of give some idea about kind of, your relationship to Trek. So why don't you start out with why do you love Star Trek?
I love Star Trek for a myriad of different reasons. Sometimes just because like it's fun, it's weird, it's strange sometimes, it's horny sometimes if you look at the history of Gene Roddenberry and all that fun stuff. But the reason that I love it the most is that it's a show that is all about a hopeful future, not a perfect future, which is sometimes what people mistake Star Trek as, like, oh, it's a perfect utopia, which I actually disagree about. I think it's a future that is hopeful and shows a future where humanity takes delight in the differences of others and focuses on the best parts, or cultivating the best parts of itself. But is also not unaware of its failures and the problems that we get into, but is willing to try to work on them and try to grow from them. And I think like a show like that is always focused on that positivity and hope for the future is something that I really think we all kind of need right now, especially right now. And yeah, I think also just the idea of taking delight in other people. We always talk about like tolerating other people or, accepting other people, but I feel like that's not enough. And what Star Trek shows us is it's about delighting in differences, because our differences make us stronger together. And that's why I love Star Trek. And then again, just the fact that it's weird and strange and out there, and there's weird little salamander babies floating around out there. That's also why I love it.
Oh, for sure. Well said. And I feel like Star Trek, you get kind of the best of both of that, where you get the silly sci-fi stuff, but like, the serious, powerful things. And that was great. Next question is, so when you think about like the different series, which one do you kind of gravitate to, or do you consider like your home base, crew or show?
So show and crew would actually be kind of two different answers.
Okay.
To a degree. I'm just trying to, I was actually wrestling with this because I usually kind of struggle a bit. In terms of show, like I kind of have three answers. There's Star Trek Enterprise, which is the one that I grew up with. Like that was the one that I watched week to week when I was a little kid.
Awesome.
And so I have like a nostalgia for it, even though it's definitely one of the bumpier series, let's just say. It's been a long road with that show.
Oh yeah.
But I also really love Deep Space Nine, because and this is where Deep Space Nine would also be my crew answer, at least in part, because I think it's the best show qualitatively. I also just think it's a show that is all about the outcasts in society, but being able to form a family. Like you look at Next Generation, where it's like everyone's like competent and everyone's like already gelling as a crew kind of right from day one.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Deep Space Nine, everyone's like these sort of outcasts and sort of on the frontier, but they're all still doing the Star Trek thing of working together and finding bonds and community. They don't gel together as perfectly, and yet they do form a family, and it kind of speaks to that ethos. So I love Deep Space Nine as a crew for that, and as a show, I also love it for those reasons too, because it also had sort of a reverence for Star Trek in a way that was able to sort of like look outside Star Trek and critique it, and yet still uphold it, I think, in a really wonderful way. And then the final answer to the question, I know I said multiple, but so I'm cheating a little bit, but
no.
Lower Decks.
Yes.
I adore Lower Decks so much, because both the characters in the show and the show itself is as excited about Star Trek as I am, and is just as nerdy and into the weeds of Star Trek as I am. But also, people tend to think like, oh, it's the comedy show that references a lot of Star Trek stuff, and it's like, no. What I love most about Lower Decks is it's a show about people who just completely earnestly believe in the ideals of what Star Trek is. Like that show is just so endearingly earnest that it just warms my heart every single time I watch it. And those characters are just so sweet. And not gonna lie, I've had the very wonderful luck to meet a lot of the people who work on that show, and they're just as warm and amazing in real life. So it just that also really very much endears it to me.
I love the spread there. It's a good mix of different shows. I don't know, Jessie, if you've listened to this, but Nicole and I listened to this other podcast, Our Opinions Are Correct, with Charlie Jane Anders and Annalee Newitz.
Oh, I know Charlie Jane Anders.
Yeah, she's great. Yeah. But we had an episode where she talked about the concept of a genre called sweet weird. She kind of described and talked about Lower Decks really fitting in that sweet weird category. And ever since then, I'm like, I just love sweet weird things, I think. And Lower Decks exemplifies that.
I adore that. I adore that as a phrase and as an idea. I'm going to have to listen to that because that's wonderful.
It's a fun one.
All right, the last question, which hopefully this is for some guests, is it can be really hard to answer. I don't think I have an answer for this question yet, actually. But if you could go, it does change.
I have an easy answer for this one, actually.
Okay, if you could go on a date with any character from Trek, and it could be either romantic in nature or just platonic, your choice in all things. Who would you choose?
I mean, the easy answer is just Riker. I mean, like, look, if the goal is not to form like a long-term relationship, just have like a fun date, Riker, easily. He seems like he'd be the most fun date. He'd be respectful of boundaries if I'm ever uncomfortable, but he'd also be like willing to make me very comfortable. If you know what I'm saying. And he just seems like he'd be a lot of fun. I yet like the easy answer to that is Riker. If the question was like who would I want to marry at the end of the day, that'd be a different question. But on a date, 100% Riker, not even a question.
I love it.
I love that too. That's great.
All right, so you mentioned Deep Space Nine as like one of your faves, one of your home bases, and that's actually what we're going to be talking about today.
Hell yeah.
We're going to be digging in a little bit Deep Space Nine. Before we get into that, we have a.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine.
I totally missed
skipping over my segment. It's okay. I have a small segment that we do at the beginning of each show called Trek Check.
Computer, status report. What the hell was that?
And it's usually just kind of a news and updates, but I just wanted to dig into like two quick things that's been kind of going on in Star Trek. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on some of these
Bad
two.
News first.
Yeah, on some of your thoughts too, Jesse. The sad news, I think, is the announcement that season 5 of Discovery is going to be its final season, and it will be debuting later in 2024 rather than this year. So I think that's a bummer. I'm really happy and excited about what Discovery has accomplished and brought to Star Trek. So it's very, very bittersweet. What do you two think?
I guess I'll go first. I'm with you. I think it's bittersweet to me because, on the one hand, I think Star Trek Discovery has done so much for Star Trek. Not only did it bring Star Trek back, which is no small thing, because other than the J.J. Abrams movies, Star Trek was dead for a long while, and so it brought it back. But not only that, it dealt with a lot of the like trying to figure out what Star Trek is in modern day. And, all the Star Trek shows that we have now, from Picard to Strange New Worlds, are kind of drawing upon both the successes and the failures of Discovery and what it took to sort of learn those things. And then on top of that, Star Trek Discovery pushed Star Trek forward, I think, in a way that like it really needed to be pushed, not just in terms of like modernizing it, but modernizing it in the sense of like it being more inclusive in a really wholesome and wonderful way. And I say the word inclusive specifically as opposed to just diverse, because, past Star Treks at times were inclusive, but often were, the big thing was diverse in the sense that like, look at all these, people of different backgrounds that we have here, but they weren't actually always allowed to show that, or sometimes showed it in very problematic ways. I mean, I can think of like Akuchi Moya with Chakotay and things like that. But Discovery, I think, especially once it got into like season 2 and then especially season 3 and 4, I think was just had so many people of so many different backgrounds, and let those people of those backgrounds show their authenticity on screen, both as actors and as characters. Like the queer representation of that show was so beautiful and wonderful and felt really real to me as a queer person. And I can't speak for these other communities, but I know that I've heard other people speak the same to different cultures that appeared on Discovery. And I think that is reflected in all the other Star Trek shows that we get to watch. I mean, like Strange New Worlds, most definitely, Lower Decks even, and Prodigy and Picard. I think that's a baton that Discovery really, really helped carry and champion, and Star Trek today is better, much better for it, after the failures of like specifically people like Rick Berman, but even problems of the past Star Treks, as much as I love them. But I also, so that's the sad angle of it. But I also think that there's a lot to celebrate. I mean, like Star Trek is still strong. There's still Strange New Worlds, there's still Lower Decks, there's still Prodigy, Picard's still going on now, though I'm sure it's ending it this season. And there's hints of things to come. So by no means is Star Trek gone without Discovery. And, I think 5 seasons of a show is strong. I mean, the show like went longer seasons than the original series than in Enterprise. So I mean, like it's still got a feather in its cap. And I think that any show, especially in modern TV era, to go 5 seasons is like that's a success in my book. So I'm sad, and I'm hopeful that the lessons that Star Trek Discovery learned and taught will keep pushing forward with Star Trek. But by no means do I think it was a failure or anything like that. So bittersweet.
Wow. I mean, I think actually you said everything that I could have thought to say. So I think it's just, I mean, I echo pretty much all of that. Yes, I'm sad in a way, but yeah, happy for all the same reasons that you mentioned, or uh, satisfied, I guess, or happy. But I'm also glad that they'll get to end on their own terms. Especially kind of, I think maybe that's just the nature of streaming. Because they order. Things don't seem to end abruptly as much as
Mhm.
they used to with kind of like the broadcast type of television. So anyway, they get to end on their own terms, and ideally with I presume with a satisfactory conclusion. So I look forward to seeing that. So
And the cool thing too with Star Trek is that like it doesn't really mean that it's ended. I mean, like Star Trek's going on, so who's to say we won't see these characters pop up somewhere else like we have with Picard or in spinoffs and like doing little cameos. And then also like there's going to be numerous comics and books and things like that. So like Discovery, the show is going to end, but I don't think these characters or that corner of the universe is by any means gone. So
definitely not.
I'm really hoping that it's not the end of the 32nd century. I'm really hoping and optimistic that we're going to see much more from that era, because it's like ripe for a whole lot of exploration.
Well, I know one of the shows in development is like the Starfleet Academy show, which
Yeah.
they have said is going to be set if it goes through in that era.
That's what I heard
like
too.
and things like that.
That sounds great. Yeah, that'd be cool. Anyway, but yeah, that's probably one of the bigger news. The other thing I just wanted to bring up for Trek Check is Star Trek Picard season 3. The final Picard season is currently running as of this recording. We've seen 3 episodes, I believe. Episode 4 will be dropping soon. And Jessie, I think from your tweets you've seen a few, right?
I've seen up to episode 6.
Yes,
so
with the
far.
screeners, right? So
Yep.
won't go into spoilers past what I think we've seen, but we like to just kind of give some brief thoughts about the currently running shows and what we think about the direction it's taking. And I think, at least from my standpoint, we've really enjoyed watching the season of Picard. I think Picard has been one of the more challenging ones of the newer series for us to kind of really get behind with some of the themes. Like I feel like we're always really loving watching it in the moment, but then stepping back, I'm like, what was that? And this one's kind of, I think, really kept me gripped. Like I've been really excited. And if you haven't seen episodes 1 through 3, this is a spot where there'll be a little bit of spoilers, but some elements of the season I'm not a huge fan of. Like I wasn't certain, just like thematically from a storytelling standpoint, how about having the son of Beverly and Picard involved. But as of episode 3, I'm liking the direction that they're going with it, and I'm liking that it's not a drawn out mystery that we learn pretty quick in the story. I'm liking the introduction of some of the legacy characters. I'm liking some of the new characters. I'm actually really excited week to week for these. So I'll bring you to it. Nicole, how about you? What do you think about it so far?
Yeah, again, echoing some of the things that you just mentioned. And I will say that I feel like the best intro so far has been Worf. I really loved that introduction to Worf. And he just looks fine as hell. Like, just like silver haired, like esteemed, like Klingon. And also his new kind of like chill vibe, I guess. He's like, we don't have to be so intense all the time. Anyway. I've just been adoring Worf, even though he's only been in like probably 5 minutes of screen time.
I mean, both him and Geordi, just from this promotional images, both are like aged like fine wine.
Yes,
like, fine wine.
I can't wait to see. Yeah, we haven't seen Geordi yet on screen, so I'm excited for that. Yeah, I mean, it's so fun watching all the TNG cast be in this season, and who knows who we're gonna get. Also, shout out to the villain. Current villain, at least by episode 3, Vatic is intense and wild, like a chaotic evil that is amazing to watch. And it's like, I'm like, what am I trying to say? Like I get tense. I mean, you kind of do in like when you're watching stuff, but I just feel like particularly like you just really don't. I can't predict what she's gonna do, and some of the tech with the portals has been really cool to watch visually. Something new, for space battles and things that we've seen. Throwing in a new element there has been cool to watch. So yeah, I mean, 3 out of 10 episodes, so we've got a ride ahead of us. So yeah, liking what I've seen so far.
How about you, Jesse? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you both. Again, saying spoiler free for the stuff that I've seen ahead on. I have been really, really enjoying the season. I think, I agree. Star Trek Picard has been not only my least favorite, modern Star Trek show. It's probably my least favorite Star Trek show overall, at least in the first 2 seasons. And I've been one of the nicer people to that show than others, I think. I think a lot of that has been the show has wanted to be more of a prestige Emmy drama rather than actually having something worth saying and just trying to be a showcase for look at how character driven and modern we are. And this season really feels like it actually has something it wants to say. It's trying to have fun. It's really kind of looking at what Star Trek was while still not being tethered down to being TNG season 8. I think is a lot of fun. The characters that have come back have all felt like they have grown and changed. They're not just, static. Hey, look, here's the thing that you like. There's growth there, and there's a lot of fun in it. And I have been really enjoying this season a ton. I still think there's some problems that I think have plagued not only Picard, but I think Discovery had some of these issues too, in terms of pacing and things like that. So I hesitate to say it's it's fixed all of my problems, but it's certainly a huge improvement and something that I've gone from being with the first 2 seasons being all right, let's get through this to I am actively excited. And to tease, I will say the 3 episodes that I've seen, there's some stuff that I'm oh, that was so freaking cool.
I'm so excited. All right. So as you said earlier, Nicole, we are digging into some Deep Space Nine, getting into the love stories, the romances here. We're talking today about the romance between ISHKA, aka Moogie, Quark's mother, and Grand Nagus ZEK of Ferenginar. We chose 3 episodes to focus on. Those being the season 5, episode 30, Ferengi Love Songs. Season 6, episode 23, Prophet and Lace. Season 7, episode 24, Dogs of War. And we are following throughout those episodes is focusing on for this podcast is how that relationship kind of came to be, that development, the sort of Ferengi feminist elements, and we'll get into. There is another episode that could be considered within this arc. I think that's the Magnificent Ferengi, which has Moogie was kidnapped by the Dominion, I believe. That doesn't have a whole lot going on with the romance, so we didn't really focus on it for this podcast. But it's one you could, if you want to binge the arc, you could go into that.
You could even arguably put the 7th season episode of the Mirror Universe one, because that kind of touches upon it too a little bit.
That's a good point. That's a good point. The other one I had that could possibly be, there's the season 3 episode Family Business that actually introduces ISHKA, but she's in that one she's actually played by a different actress. Mostly we see her, it's Cicely Adams. Originally was the comedian Andrea Martin in that season 3 episode. So but anyway, those are the episodes that we're focusing on. Do you just kind of initial thoughts, you two? What do you think about either the episodes or kind of the relationship in question, just a general initial thoughts to begin?
I mean, you when you asked me to do it in the podcast, you sort of gave me a list of a few different ones, and I picked this one specifically because this is a relationship that I haven't really analyzed a whole bunch, but I know there's a lot there, and I have to say oh boy, do I have thoughts on it, and none of them particularly positive. There's some elements that I do enjoy, but the big thing that I have with this relationship is it dovetails quite a lot with the feminist arc of the Ferengi that we get in Deep Space Nine, and it is an arc that you can very clearly tell was written by a lot of dudes. I love Deep Space Nine, but it is even amongst all of these Star Trek shows, I think it is the most male-dominated writers' room of all of the sort of Rick Berman era Star Trek series. In fact, I think even during the final season of that show, there wasn't a single female writer on the entire staff. So yeah, so that is like the thing that you can definitely feel in all of these like well-meaning guys trying to be feminists, but oh boy, missing the mark. There's elements here that I'm like, okay, you mean well, and I see where you're trying to go with this. But overall, it's like, and I say this as someone who generally really likes the Ferengi episodes. Like I adore things like the Magnificent Ferengi and other ones. Like I call them. Can I swear on this show?
Yeah, anytime.
I joke with my friends that some of my favorite episodes of Deep Space Nine are the Ferengi fuck about episodes, where it's just Ferengis fucking around doing Ferengi shit. But yeah, these ones are rough, and there's still stuff I like in the episodes generally. Like Brunt is always a joy. Armin Shimmerman is always great, and I even love ZEK as well. Like he isolated is got some fun moments to him. But this relationship, I think, is very clearly well-meaning but ignorant dudes trying their best to write a feminist arc.
How about you, Nicole? What do you think?
Well, I just want to first say that I love ISHKA or Moogie as a character, just because I don't know. I mean, again, you can kind of tell she was not necessarily written by women, but at the same time, she's just so herself without giving a damn about anybody else thinks. Her own sons, her society at large, and it's just really refreshing, especially because she is an aged woman, a mature woman, and that's one thing. I think that on Deep Space Nine, anyway. I mean, like, I guess you could argue Dax is old, but not necessarily Jadzia. And I think seeing ISHKA do her thing, really, and like be good at it is really refreshing. Ferengi in general, yeah, it's touch and go. I mean, they can be enjoyable for what they're putting out there. And I agree. Jeffrey Combs' Brunt is definitely also another highlight. But
excuse me, Brunt FCA is his full name.
Oh, yes.
Excuse me.
Yeah, he would correct me. That's true. These looking at these 3 episodes in particular, they're definitely a bit of a roller coaster within each episode and also as an arc. And I forgot how much other stuff is in the Dogs of War episode. So I'm trying to like clear my brain of all the other things I want to talk about, and focus on the Ferengi in that episode. But it can be hard. We also get a little bit of a peek into Quark's brother Rom and Lita, Bajor and Lita relationship as well, especially in Ferengi love songs. So I might touch on that a little bit too, as well, even though our main focus is ISHKA and ZEK. But yeah, the Ferengi are a riot. That's for sure, for better or for worse. So
I will say just something that you said there that I didn't mention, but I think you're absolutely correct on, is like the one element of this that I really, really do like is the fact that we get to see an older couple kind of enjoying each other. Like they very clearly have sex and they're very clearly like enjoying each other and showing affection for each other and a lot of attention for each other, which is something you don't often see with like older couples on television even today. Like very much we see like older couples like be very sexless, be very like emotional but not like physically affectionate. So like I that element of it I actually think is well depicted throughout these episodes.
Did you have thoughts, Joe?
Do I have thoughts? I have thoughts.
I meant, did you get a chance to express your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, so all right. So yes, I think I have to echo what you guys both shared, but I have one of the things that I think is interesting for this arc. I think that there are like you said, there's so many well-intentioned elements to it, but we're also given to understand that that Ferenginar and the Ferengi Alliance is a whole empire, right? So we see this like aggressively conservative, capitalist, misogynistic culture. And it's just an interesting choice. And I don't know, for better or worse, that all of this is often played as comedy. And so like in Star Trek, we've seen, these kinds of like some like negative aspects of culture is usually seen as like very problematic and very challenging to like Starfleet to handle. But we often in a lot of these elements have like our characters, our Starfleet characters, just like, oh, Ferengi, like eye roll kind of thing about like what's arguably like a like subservient class of like a whole gender on a planet or in an empire in a sense. And to what I struggle with sometimes in Deep Space Nine, and this is probably a budgetary constraint, is Ferenginar feels very small to me.
Mm-hmm.
They keep saying it's an empire and everything, but I'm like, ZEK just like hops over whenever he was the leader of the Ferengi just comes over. So it's in that sense, and maybe they knew the limitations they had budget wise, so they're like, we just got to play it for comedy, otherwise we can't do it any other way. So that's just something that's always just like tonally like been weird for me. And I think that's on full display in these episodes for sure. I will say I really do enjoy both actors who portray the characters. Cecily Adams does a great job. Wallace Shawn is an icon. He's having a blast. I enjoy it. Fun fact, I was reading in some of the research for this, they actually considered back in season 3 having Wallace Shawn play ISHKA as well.
That would have been an interesting choice.
That would have been a very interesting is a good word. Yeah, I'm not sure how that would have gone, but that was something they considered before they found on Andrea Martin originally. So that was one thing that could have happened. I guess it's one of those, like, I could see it going very well. I could see it also going very badly. And given some of the choices in these episodes, I tend to lean in probably badly. I think badly. And I don't know how these episodes would work, like having like the same person. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it would have been interesting. Yeah. I suppose we should kind of dig into some like I'll give like a brief outline of what these episodes are kind of about. In Ferengi Love Songs, we see Quark returning to Ferenginar to kind of seek the comfort of home and his mother after being depressed, and then coming to realize that his mother and Grand Nagus Zek have a relationship that's kind of secret. He gets bribed by Brunt to try to break them up, and then they end up staying together ultimately. Prophet and Lace is the one where Grand Nagus Zek is deposed for adding a women's right amendment to the Ferengi Bill of Opportunities. That's kind of an interesting one because that's the one where Quark takes hormones to become a female Ferengi for a little bit. So that's why that one's kind of famous. And then Dogs of War is like it's like the second to the last episode. So it's really intense on like a lot of fronts.
Also, just a quick correction.
Yeah.
Technically not just hormones, gets full surgery as we.
That's right.
It's a very important plot point.
Full surgery.
So.
To become a woman. A female Ferengi. It's absolutely, yeah. I will get into that for sure. And Dogs of War is a lot about wrapping up a whole bunch of DS9 plot threads. There's a lot going on, but ultimately we see Grand Nagus Zek planning to retire with ISHKA to Ryza and passing on his title, and it's the suspense of leading up to that passing of the torch. So,
which I forgot about.
I kind of did too. That was kind of a fun return there. But that's kind of the episodes we're talking about. Annie, I guess we can kind of dig a little bit deeper into it now.
One thing I wanted to say too, kind of staying at the macro level before we dig into specifics, though, I want to use some specific examples. Is like the big problem, I think, especially with these episodes, but with the Ferengi generally, but like the big problem, especially with these, is, as you said earlier, Ferengi, especially in Deep Space Nine, kind of become this mirror of, hyper-capitalistic societies. And I think that can work to great effect in a lot of cases when we get to see Quark. Like, there's a great episode about unions that I think like uses that aspect of the Ferengi really, really well to like critique capitalist culture. But here in these episodes, when it mixes in with like the feminist element of it, I think there are times where the show doesn't offer up enough criticism. Like, it recognizes the sexism is bad, and yet it kind of plays it very softly in terms of like, oh yeah, that's kind of adorable sexism, like the lovable scoundrel sort of trope. The big example that I can give from these episodes that's very clear about this, but I think it's infused throughout all of it. But this is a clear example, is at the beginning of Prophet and Lace, Quark is talking to one of the dancers that works for him, and he basically he's like, oh, I'll pay you more money, but you have to perform sexual favors for me, like perform more sexual favors for my benefit. And it's framed as bad because at the end of the episode, Quark, like having gone through an experience as a woman and which is his own sort of thing, he comes back to her and is like, oh no, that's awful, I won't do that, like don't do that, I understand you better. But like there's never a sense of like, dude just kind of asked for a quid pro quo relationship, and it's really fucked up actually. And it's kind of played as more like ha ha comedy. And there's not really an addressing of the darkness of that. And it's like, if you're going to use these things, it's not really particularly funny in a way that's like, oh, you lovable scamp, you. It's more like, no, that's messed up. And yeah, so it's this element of like playing the Ferengi for comedy in a way that I don't think understands the weight of criticism necessary for the things that it's displaying. And I think that is a issue sort of effused throughout all of this. When you get to ZEK and ISHKA, specifically, like their relationship kind of has that same power dynamic that is not really fully examined. Like ISHKA is played like, yeah, she's a like, she is a very strong character. And yet she's also a woman in a very sexist society that this man is quite literally the leader of. And it's just kind of played weird without a full acknowledgement of that. And then one other element of this too, but this is sort of a separate issue. I want to make sure I don't overtalk both of you. So apologies, because I'm going for a while. So sorry.
No.
But one element of this too that is one that I can go either way on, but it's something I wish it examined was more, is like the girl boss feminism of ISHKA, where it's like she is like fighting for women's rights, but number one, she is shown as like an aberration in Ferengi women. Like in the second episode, like they have to like defend women's rights, and like, well, ISHKA has a heart attack and gets sick, so there's obviously no other women in all of Ferengi society that could ever show that women have business acumen, so we'll just make a dude a woman and he'll pretend to do it. So it's like she's like this one individual, like great woman Ferengi who has a head for business, and then also she's not really working to like stop the system that is harming her as a woman. She just wants to, become an exploiter, which to be fair could be taken as part of the critique of hyper-capitalist culture. But I don't know if the show itself is that self-aware.
Yeah, no, thank you for, I have no problem with you going on, because that's why we invite guests on, because we wanted to hear your thoughts, on anything. And this is a particularly interesting topic to go over, especially in Trek. Yeah, I don't know, you just said everything really well. And yeah, I know Joe probably sent you our rating system, which we'll get into closer to the end of the episode, but I definitely am still like, it's hard to, like we said, there are aspects about ISHKA and ZEK's relationship that are great, but then I'm like, man, and even the first episode that we mentioned, Ferengi love songs, and sometimes I was like, is she exploiting ZEK? But then of course, as the Grand Nagus of the Ferengi, is literally the leader. I mean, isn't he like, in a hyper-capitalist society like that, isn't he like the most exploitative person of all?
Yeah.
So I mean, is it like getting a little bit of the give and take, yeah.
And he also clearly has dementia in the first episode that we watched too. So
yes.
Power dynamic here is all over the map.
It really is.
It's like lots of things on either side of that scale.
And yeah, like now the more that we are talking about and digging into these episodes, it's wild, like the gross mishandling or just like glossing over of frankly very deep and intense topics that deserve a lot more finesse to go through.
So to what you were saying about like there's like no other female Ferengi that could like come to that that meeting. I think it's interesting to kind of think back because like the show itself has even shown otherwise, and I don't know why they didn't like bring this in, but like I'm thinking about that episode with Pell. What was that one? It was what was it
I know
called?
it's a
Rules of
season.
Profit. No, what was it called?
Rules Profit.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's a season 2 episode, but yeah, you had the which is also an interesting like trans mask reading I've seen of Pell, where Pell does not. This is the episode, listeners, where there is a Ferengi who pretends to be a man in order to do like business, and like she's actually better than any of them. So like, yeah, that would have been a great character to bring back.
Yeah.
And there's nuances with that too in terms of like reading Pell as a trans mask representation, because it's not a clear 1-to-1. But you know, interesting character that actually would have been great to have brought in this episode.
Agreed. It's Rules of Acquisition. I have it written down. That was the episode that I was. But yeah, that was a really interesting episode. Actually, it's one episode we could actually totally cover on this one too, because there's romance there in a sense. But yeah, like. Yeah, in terms of like bringing back characters, which Deep Space Nine is really good at overall. Like that would have been a great one to reach into.
Yeah, surprisingly, maybe there was like a behind the scenes reason, but
could have been. But that's
I think those the only two. Are those the only 2 female Ferengi that we get to meet throughout the entire?
I think
series?
so.
Because I think the rest we don't ever see, because like by basis of what the Ferengi culture is, they have to be nude.
Yeah.
Which Star Trek could not do nudity at that time. So.
Yeah, no, that's probably true. I feel like again, it lends to that smallness element of the Empire, which just feels like we only see like a couple people that really exist, and they're like some are normal and some are like really powerful, and they just all seem to interact all the time. So I don't know. It's hard. It's also like,
now that we're talking about it, I really wish that like we had gotten even just like some scenes of Mugi, ISHKA, like with a group of like other female Ferengi who are, you know, trying to just make their place in society and change, you know, the misogynistic elements, and you're even just teaching them, you know, business and finance, like what she knows, and then also like advocating for rights for themselves. That would have been, you know, awesome to have like an ISHKA girl gang.
I mean, that goes back to the sort of like girl boss feminism aspect of ISHKA, where it's like, you know, the idea of a girl boss is like someone who's like, she's not really there to change the system. She's not really there to really bring up other women. She just wants to be a woman at the top of the system that's already, you know, not really that's already harming women, you know?
Yeah.
And ISHKA, like, I don't think this was the intent. This is, I think, where my problem with that is like, I don't think the show is intentionally trying to display girl boss feminism. It was actually trying to say like, yeah, this is what feminism is. Women just getting to be able to have the same exploitative abilities as men. And it's like, no, what actual feminism is trying to break down these systems that are not only just harming women, but harming men as well, but like very directly harming women. And trying to create something new that is less harmful to everybody. And again, that is to say, like, there is an element of truth in this, because in a hyper-capitalist society, you are going to have women who are going to want to be the girl boss feminists. Like we see that very clearly today. You know, I'm trying to think of like good examples off the top of my head. Like the one girl who wears the like very much trying to do Steve Jobs, Theranos lady. I'm blanking on her name. But she's like a good example of like a girl boss feminist character, or a person in real life, I should say, not character. But anyways, you know, so there's an element of that being truthful, but I don't think the show is self-aware enough to realize that. I think it was just dude writers being like, this is what feminism is.
Well, and even in Profit and Lace, ultimately, like the way to convince the board member to, you know, reinstate ZEK, and to, you know, basically allow this amendment to you know, let women wear clothes, I think was I can't remember exactly what the amendment all entailed. You know, gaining some rights and being like less treated like shit. And the whole convincing argument was we can make money off of the female Ferengi, basically. So
Mm-hmm.
Exploit.
Yeah, which again, there's truth in it to be
Yes.
like, yes, that makes sense. But I just don't know if the show itself is self-aware of it. And like there's continual elements of this throughout this. And I know I'm kind of talking more generally, not just about ISHKA and ZEK, but like you get elements of like the characters will refer to Ferengi men as Ferengi, but like Ferengi women are Ferengi females. You know, it's like they're a subset of Ferengi, whereas Ferengi men are just like the natural
Regular
state of Ferengi,
Mhm.
which is, again, truthful. I think that is very realistic. But I don't know how self-aware the show is of that as like a concept and being willing to self-analyze that.
Not aware at all, I would say.
Yeah.
You
It's
have
like
some more go ahead.
accident. Oh, sorry. No.
No, I was going to say I could see Joe scrolling on some of the notes he wrote, so I was going to ask him if there was something that those points.
No, I think that, I mean, you guys, I'm just nodding along. I feel like you guys are making really good points. I'm interested. This is, again, not quite the relationship element of it, but the final episode we watched, the passing of the torch, where Quark keeps thinking he's going to become the next Grand Nagus, but we ultimately realize, spoiler alert, it's Rom that they're passing it on to. And I'm kind of thinking about that as in like, up until that point, it's very true that we were kind of like, the system wasn't really changing, like you're saying, the system, but wasn't really changing in that sense. They're just kind of like bringing women to that same system and allowing and making them part of that. But I'm interested is the idea of having Rom taking on that role. Rom is somebody who kind of rejects that Ferengi system we see throughout it, and becoming Grand Nagus. There was that sequence where him and Quark were talking on the together on one of the platforms about the new reforms, like environmental reforms and like progressive tax bases or like social programs, and how much Quark is just talking like very transparently Republican, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Rom is like casually just saying like, all those things are great, I like all those things, and then I want the bar, right? But then like when he becomes the Grand Nagus, like, are we to kind of believe that this like these progressive systems, like, are we seeing like a transformation of Ferenginar? Is Rom gonna like usher that in? Like, I know the extended universe novels like implied that ISHKA was still kind of a financial advisor for Rom as well. So I wonder, like, is that just like, was that like a little bit of a recognition of like, okay, we actually need to show that there are progressive reforms being made other than just like bringing them into that system? I'm not sure.
Well,
sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, we don't really get much. I mean, that's basically the end of what we see of the Ferengi. So we don't really know how it turns out. My one comment on this is that as when Brunt comes back in that same episode and is like trying to suck up to Quark, basically, because he also, or I don't remember if Quark told him or Brunt is assuming that Quark is going to be named Grand Nagus.
Yeah,
and Quark's lamenting about, oh my gosh, like I can't believe like all of these things have changed about Ferenginar. This isn't Ferengi culture and blah 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 blah. And I mean, it stands out to me now that Brunt wasn't like joining in on that and like, oh my gosh, yeah, you need to stop this. Like it seemed to me that Brunt accepted what Ferenginar was now with all of these reforms that, you know, they kind of throw out all these various like Joe mentioned environmentalism and why am I blanking on some of these? And just like rights and welfare and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know. It seems like Brunt has accepted it, and Quark, as the only person, one of the only Ferengi, like not on Ferenginar, is like the only one who's like lamenting the old ways.
Brunt's just trying to be a yes man, basically.
Yeah, he's just trying to yes man it all.
But if he's trying to suck up to Quark, he could be like, yes, this is terrible.
He does, though. At one point, they do sort of like have a lament together in one scene where he does sort of like say, "Oh yeah, you're right. You'll do all this thing." But it also could be read as like him sucking up to Quark in that moment, because that's what Quark's saying, and he's in the suck up mode there. Yeah. So it's hard to get a clear read on Brunt. He just sort of, I think he just wants to be adjacent.
Clear read on Brunt.
Yeah, I think he's just trying to be adjacent to whoever's the most power. Yeah. What's also interesting too, especially I just want to before we get too far off of it, Rom is super interesting because actually there's a lot of sexism baked into Rom's character too. Mm-hmm. because he is shown to be like there. We see this in Ferengi love songs and Prophet and Lace, but he is shown to be like quote unquote less of a Ferengi because he is not good at business. Like they quite saying that he's a bad Ferengi. And we had already talked before how there's this implicit assumption that like maleness is equatable to like being a Ferengi. And so, like, he is less of a Ferengi by fact of that he is not good at business. And then this is then tied into sexism with Prophet and Lace, because there's a scene in that episode where Quark is trying to, quote unquote, learn how to be a good woman, end quote. And Rom is actually, out of all of them, even more so than Lita, better able to like display feminine traits, quote unquote feminine traits. So he like can saunter, he can display himself on the couch really well, and the character's like astonished at how like good of a woman Rom can like feminine qualities can display.
Like, Rom should have been. Yeah, they were like Rom should have been. Quark,
exactly, but by showing that. There that sort of equates this idea of like being more feminine is inherently meaning that you're less of a Ferengi, less of a person, less of a man. So like it's all kind of tied together of like, if you're bad at business, you're less of a man. If you're feminine, you know, you're dumber. And then that even gets tied into Quark at one moment, because like Quark is we know Quark is good at business. But then all of a sudden, when he shifts into a quote unquote female body, so he gets surgeries and apparently have hormones going on, he's like, oh, all these numbers. I don't understand these numbers, Zeki. And so it's like literally a thing that he says. And it's like, so the implication there is that like female hormones make you dumb, which is messed up. So like, there's all those like sort of like sexist jokes implied in all of this. And it goes, and we can tie it back into ISHKA in the sense that like she is shown to be good at business. You mentioned too, like Rom is said to have like been still advised by ISHKA, and like she is shown to be like a more masculine figure in terms of the society. And so like it's an interesting sort of like comparison to sort of like tie all those things together. So like when we look at like the reforms of Ferenginar, and don't get me wrong, I adore Rom. He is my baby. I adore him so much. But it's just sort of like with all of those things tied together, it's one of those like, well, that's kind of problematic a little bit to sort of put that in him in that role and say that that's sort of what's going to bring change to Ferenginar.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And I feel like you're just kind of bringing up to me that ISHKA, being good at business. I mean, if she was not, then like nobody would be listening to her. Mm-hmm. And so it is, like you said, by tying the business acumen to being a good Ferengi and also being a masculine, it's interesting. Also, that like one of the only reasons that she even gets as far as she does is because she does have that somehow, and has the business acumen, and apparently is good with numbers, despite what Quark says in that episode.
Yeah, exactly. It's a weird thing. It's a weird joke for them to have done, because it's like that all of Prophet and Lace, like even ignoring the transphobia elements of it, the entirety of Prophet and Lace is like based in very sexist humor. Like it's all like the show was made in the 1990s, but like the jokes in it feel like they're from a sitcom farce from like the 1960s or 70s. In terms of its sexual politics. And I think they try to get away with it because it's like, oh, it's the Ferengi, but it's just played so straight that it just like allows these assumptions to sort of like continue. It's just like, It's the thing with Star Trek that I always kind of say that when Star Trek tries to be haha funny, when it tries to have jokes, it actually really fails at them. It is actually really bad at being like intentionally funny, unless you're lower decks. But when Star Trek is like trying to create a humorous situation, that ends up being funny because you get like stuff like the Magnificent Ferengi and things like that, where it's like it's not really like here's a joke. It's like this is a humorous situation. Like situational comedy, it's great at being haha jokes. It usually falls upon really lazy gags.
Mhm.
Because I just don't think that the writers of Star Trek, especially during the like Rick Berman era, they weren't comedy writers. They were drama writers. And so when they tried that, I think they really failed at it. But when they made humorous situations, those were fun because then it would let the actors get to like, because Armin Shimmerman's comedic, in fact, all of these actors' comedic timing is amazing. So when you allow them to sort of guide the humor, I think that's a lot more fun.
And I think, yeah, the fact that they made it all comedic, like it's a lot to reconcile with. But the fact that the actors are so capable, like, is what makes it somewhat palatable to kind of sit through these episodes. Like, just knowing like that they're able to kind of sell some of those like really bad moments and make them like, okay, like you almost get a chuckle out of me. But like, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to watch this sometimes. And I think about, like you said, those writers, like they're not really great at making jokes. And I bet a lot of those like especially male writers like in that era like probably grew up with those 60s and 70s sitcoms, and they're probably thinking in that mindset of like, oh, this is how you write jokes, right? Yeah,
Not an excuse.
not an excuse, but that's probably what's going on.
Yeah, I think that they were writers who like grew up with those sitcoms and then were probably like, when they were writing Star Trek, they probably did a lot of work like watching other dramas on at the time, as well they should, because they wanted to like be contemporary with their their peers. But then they probably didn't watch a lot of comedies, and so as a result they just relied on what they knew, which was the older stuff. That's supposition on my part, but it's it would make sense.
Probable, very probable. Well, I think, Nicole, you might have said this to me like when we were watching the episode or something, but like you mentioned like Armin Shimmerman being like kind of disappointed about not having a lot of growth as Quark after some of these experiences.
Yes. I guess according to the sort of trivia or background information on Memory Alpha about this episode, that was kind of how Armin Shimmerman felt about this. Ultimately, like the outcome of this episode, Prophet and Lace specifically. Because he felt Quark did not learn anything, or I suppose you grow, and it kind of makes me think, looking back on the character of Quark in general, I'm not sure that he does ever. I mean, he's in terms of his bar, changes do end up being made, especially, that Union episode is a really big one in that, but like Quark as a character and as far as his beliefs and his values never really budge.
It's like he grows in an episode, but then like goes right back to where he was, whatever the script needs for him to do, in like some sort of like slimy antagonistic kind of thing. They'll like
humorous,
humorous. They'll just like throw him back into that, no matter like what growth he might have had a while back, which is kind of unfortunate for Deep Space Nine, which is something that they were strong at for a lot of characters.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the tendency with Quark is like he actually would have growth, like you see in episodes like the Union episode. He does have some growth in there. He grows in his relationship with Odo, and like there are definite moments for his character where he does grow, but the writers are willing to sacrifice that growth in an instant to get the gag with him. And I think that's unfortunate, because they didn't do that with any other characters. Like there are, I'm pretty sure for every other character on the show, they were always fairly consistent with that. But for Quark, they were like, well, if he's going to say something like, look how he's a capitalist, sexist man, they were willing to sort of go back on his growth just to get the laugh.
Yeah. Well, and I guess he also, there's a quote, I guess, about Prophet and Lace. It could have been a more serious, dramatic piece, or it could have been funnier, but it was neither one nor the other. So he feels pretty harshly about it too.
And it's worth mentioning, this kind of we don't need to go full into this because it could be its own whole discussion, but like that episode is also super transphobic too. It's like using the gag of like man pretending to be a woman to trick a man into something. In this case, thankfully, not sex, which is often the transphobic trope of like, a man pretending to be a woman in order to get sex from a man. But it is a man pretending to be a woman to get money from a man, which is also a sort of like very transphobic trope. And that's not to say that Quark is trans, but like that is often a stigma that real life trans women like myself will often face, of like, oh, we're just trans women in order trying to trick our way into, women's spaces, or to trick a man into having sex with us, or to, get money or something like that. So to showcase that as like a thing that actually happens in shows like this, that is a recurring problematic trope that we see
harmful
here. Yeah. And also like gender essentialist in like in the sense of like genitals. Like Quark has to get the like we clearly there's a gag that quote unquote gag that relies on like Quark exposing himself to show how much of a woman he is.
Yeah,
and so it's
that's what you were talking
yeah, so it's like, oh, because he has a vagina now, he is he like is more womanly automatically. Like again, that sort of, and again, those womanly things are like put in sexist ways of like, oh, I can't do numbers because now I have a vagina, and thereby can't understand scary numbers anymore as well. So there's that sort of gender essentialist nonsense that's in there as well. The one benefit I will say of this episode that a lot of trans people have latched onto as a positive, myself included, is that because we see in this episode Quark just goes to Bashir and says, "Hey, make me a woman today," and Bashir's like, "Sure, gotcha." And then the next day, he goes back and is like, "Turn me back into a dude," and Bashir's like, "Cool, fine." And there's like no questions. Like Bashir doesn't seem to have an issue with that or question it or anything. We don't see it, but there's no like that doesn't come up later on, which seems like would be a big deal. What that at least implies to me is that like in Starfleet society, in the Federation, that people can just easily get gender confirmation surgeries in any direction, and that the science behind it is like so well understood that there's no problems, no complications, and the healing is relatively minor. So it's like, yeah, at least trans affirmative care is readily available and like well documented on how to do it in the Federation. So at least that's a plus.
I love that. That is a good nice thing to take from that episode. I love
Yes.
that. Yes.
One nice
positive
thing you've got going for you.
I feel like so I think rightfully so we've been pretty critical. I wanted to say that if anyone listening was interested, I did find in like kind of doing research for this episode, there's a StarTrek.com article, like one of those opinion articles they would do where they kind of calling for like people writing in. There was kind of a cool one where somebody did a really deep dive into like ISHKA as a character. It's called ISHKA Ferenginar, Mother of a Movement. Writers like Zoe Malik, I believe. And that was a really cool article I read that just kind of talked about the movement that she started, and it talked about it in a really positive light. So that's I'll put that in the show notes as just like a very positive look at like ISHKA as a character. And we'll get into probably some nicer things to say when we talk about ratings. But I like that one a lot. That was a nice article. Did you guys have any other like deeper thoughts you wanted to get into about ISHKA and ZEK specifically at all?
I mean, for me, I think we kind of moved away from the two of them.
We did like Ferengi stuff, yeah.
Yeah, because I think a lot of what they're dealing with, that those characters are kind of tied up into all of these other things with the Ferengi.
Yeah.
If I'm looking at their relationship specifically, I think I already kind of said the two major things I could say about it that isn't tied to larger Ferengi conversations, which is one, the power dynamic is wildly messed up in the sense that like he has dementia. And to a degree, like she's not like taking advantage of him and taking advantage of him. Like she seems to earnestly like want to help him. But that's still sort of like an issue with that. And then, but on the flip side of that, like he is the most powerful man in a very sexist and patriarchal society. So that power dynamic over ISHKA is a lot as well. So like there's just no equal footing that these two characters can ever have in either way. So it's just sort of like their relationship just from inception is already messed up. But the positive that I will say is they do, setting aside the power dynamic stuff, they do seem to earnestly care for each other. They do seem to like earnestly like have a desire to make each other happy. And they are also physically intimate in a way that you don't often see elder couples on television, not just in Star Trek, but really anywhere, even today, get to be in a way that is good. The show still has like gross out moments at that, like, but it's in a way that's like a parent gross or a kid grossed out at a parent, which is understandable for like Quark sees him kissing. He's like, yeah, but like I could buy that as like you're watching your mom kiss a person, not like you're watching an older person kiss a person. Whereas like some of our society does have sort of ageism where it's like, ew, two old people kissing, gross, nasty, that's disgusting. Whereas here I don't get that vibe necessarily. It's more the vibe of like, ew, my mom's kissing somebody. So at least there's like that element that I can at least, maybe it's just a headcanon, but that's the way that I can like headcanon it to like at least that element of it is a positive one.
Yeah. Should we just break into the rating?
Yeah.
So I think I sent you this in the same email, Jesse, but I'll go over our kind of like love story rating scale that we have for our podcast here, a Deep Space Love rating scale. We kind of starting at the worst of the worst, we have Red Alert, which is just, incredibly toxic, bad. Yellow Alert is just a gentle step up from that, but still not a very positive relationship. Fascinating is kind of a middle of the road where we're kind of like, not quite either side, or we're kind of like intrigued to see where it would go, but not quite willing to commit either way. And then on the positive end of the scale, we have Fully Functional, which we feel really good about the relationship, and Resistance is Futile, which means it's just too hot to handle. So you gave us kind of your reasoning, but where do you think the ISHKA and ZEK relationship would fall on that scale?
I think I kind of am in between Red Alert and Yellow Alert. I think
Okay.
I'll end up on Yellow Alert just because I do appreciate the element of like an older couple getting to have some sort of positive representation, because that's still an issue that we're having today with representation. So I'll settle on Yellow Alert.
Yellow alert.
But like it is very, very tenuously there.
All right, Nicole, what did you think?
I think I placed it in fascinating.
Fascinating.
I mean, I definitely recognize like your points, Jesse, about the power dynamics. I think it's not great, but it's an interesting kind of like teeter-totter of power dynamics, and so I think that's why I'm like, that's fascinating. And like as a you've already mentioned too, like the elderly love and sex aspects to their relationship is literally fascinating. I'm just going to keep saying the word. And it's something to applaud. Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's just all I could say. So I put it in fascinating for those reasons. I guess I felt like some of those things balanced out a little bit better. It doesn't feel like super toxic to me, at least seeing them on screen. Like you said, they both seemed happy, and I think that's why I rated it higher, because they seem to make each other genuinely happy. What do you think, Joe?
I teetered a bit. Also, I was between fascinating and a Yellow Alert. I ultimately wrote fascinating on my notes.
Fascinating.
But I was a little bit in between the two. I think that for a lot of the same reasons, Nicole, you were saying why what I liked about it, like that they're happy, the older couple, that representation I thought was great. But ultimately, I think I settled on fascinating because for me, I think that a lot of these episodes would be just, despite Armin Shimmerman and Quark, despite Jeffrey Combs, would have been unbearable, I think. And I think Wallace Shawn and Cicely Adams bring this element of fun to it. And I think their chemistry as actors really added to it for me too. Like I really enjoyed them on screen as a screen presence. And maybe that's like a little bit of like an outsider take on it instead of like an in-universe take. But I think that they were having fun with each other, having fun with the roles. So like that element made these episodes just like tolerable for me to watch, and so I like that. And where we leave them in that final episode where Grand Nagus, or no longer Grand Nagus, just ZEK, passes on that the throne, or the staff. When I say throne, but
the throne
I guess there's a throne.
Yeah.
Passes it on, and they kind of go off to retire to Risa. I kind of like that for them, pushing it into a fascinating category of like that. Some of those power dynamics like will shift in that case. He's no longer the leader. And so I'm like, them retiring to Risa together, like that's fun. The implied sex there is like heavy in that moment. Like that's great. So yeah, I think it's a kind of yellow, but mostly fascinating.
Also, this is probably the only like Ferengi, exclusively Ferengi relationship. I know we see Rom get married to Lita, but otherwise we don't. And again, like you mentioned, Jesse, probably because, or maybe it was Joe, I don't remember, but because they Ferengi women are supposed to be nude all of the time, so that's probably why we don't see a lot of other or any other Ferengi relationships. But so I don't know, I guess it's got a little bit of the representation as far as in universe like Ferengi culture going for it.
I think you both have like argued me up to a higher yellow. I'm still keeping it in Yellow Alert, but it's fair. Less tenuously teetering towards Red Alert. So you both, I think I agree with everything you all have said. I will still I will still put mine in yellow alert because I still have issues, but I think you've
Valid.
argued me to a much more firmer yellow alert.
Awesome. Some healthy rating disagreements makes our show interesting, I think.
Yeah.
Well, there's nothing that either of you said that I disagree with. So hell yeah.
Well, that was a fun conversation. I
Agreed.
know, Jessie, you said you had some exciting things in March that you wanted to chat about. Is there some stuff that you want to plug that you're doing, maybe your YouTube channel or some of the projects that you're taking on?
Yeah. So full what's the word? Full peek behind the curtain. I there's a better word for it, but anyways, one of the reasons that I wanted to come on during March was I was planning during this entire month to be running a Kickstarter for a short film that I am working on. That is going to be about it's going to be it's a sci-fi trans focused short film. That I was very excited to be working on, that I am very excited to be working on with my producer, who is Dr. Erin McDonald, who many people may know is the science advisor for the Star Trek franchise right now. She runs her own production company. And the film is aiming to be, we're trying to have it cast and crewed by predominantly queer women and people of color. So yeah, we're trying to show representation both behind and in front of the camera. It's definitely the pitch for the show, or pitch for it, is basically The Matrix meets Severance, but like with a very queer centered focus and a very trans centered focus in it too. So I'm very excited about it. And like I said, I was originally going to come on here and be like, hey, go help the Kickstarter. But quite literally at the last minute, like 2 days before we were going to launch the Kickstarter, the wonderful streaming service Nebula actually came in and said, oh, we'll fund the whole thing. So
that's awesome. That's great news then.
Yeah. So they're going to fund it. They're going to distribute it. So it's definitely going to get made. It's definitely going to, happen, and people will be able to see it. So yeah, just keep a lookout for it. If you want, just to plug myself and it, if you want to get access to it, you can subscribe to Nebula. You can use my link, nebula.tv/jessiegender. And the benefit of that is if you sign up for that using, I sound like a freaking salesman, so apologies, but I mean this earnestly. The benefit of signing up there is that, one, I get, if you sign up with my link, anytime you pay, that subscription, I actually get a little bit of money from it every single time. And that supports me being able to pay my bills while I make the short film, because they're paying for the short film to get made, not my bills. So there's that element of it. You also get yourself cool stuff on Nebula, including stuff like The Prince, which is a Shakespeare multiverse trans play by Abigail Thorne of Philosophy Tube. It is so, if you like multiverse, if you like Shakespeare stuff, if you like trans stuff, you should watch it because it's really good. It makes me feel like I need to live up to that with my own thing. And then Nebula also is just really good about supporting creators. So that's the pitch for Nebula. But otherwise, you can find me on my YouTube channel. I do stuff on YouTube. I do video essay things. I talk about trans issues, queer issues, but also through Nerds and Geekdoms. Basically, if you like this type of conversation, then you'll like what I do on my channel. Yeah, I think that's the other cool thing. And you should just be excited for the short film I'm making called Identities, because I can't announce stuff yet, but we have very cool people interested in being in it, especially for Trekkie people. So that is what I will leave that at.
Awesome. So it's called Identities.
Identities. It's called IDENTITEAZE. Identities. It's said identities, but identities basically is like the
spelling. And easy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like that existence.
Yes.
Yeah. I like that. I'm really excited that's super fun news. I'm very much so looking forward to it. We'll definitely post the link to Nebula and your link in our show notes to anyone listening wants to go to it. And if you wanted to send us updates on occasion, if you like the things you can reveal, we'll definitely mention it on our show in the future too.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. Like I said, I wish I can announce that we did cast Ezra Reeves, who is a phenomenal non-binary actor, who has been in the show 4400 on the CW. and the in one of the lead roles. That one I can announce.
Ooh,
And
all
Ezra
right.
is fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to working with them. So
That's so exciting. And I will also just add a second plug for your YouTube channel. Like that's kind of what I've been watching from you, and I really enjoy a lot of your takes, and I've enjoyed watching your videos. It's something I will sometimes do on my lunch break at work, and it's a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun. I highly recommend.
oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I always feel weird. I feel weird promoting everything I just promoted. The only reason I'm like promoting is like, I'm just excited about the thing. I just dislike promoting this stuff.
God, I agree so much.
but
It's
I'm
so
just-
hard
yeah.
to promote. Like I like promote like having a podcast. Like I like how do I advertise myself? Like it's always a chore. I feel like.
Yeah, believe me, if you we did a live stream announcement for the short film. Like Nebula just like was like, let's do a live stream to announce the thing, and I'm like, okay. But if we do this and we have like people come on and be like, it's like I don't want them to just be like, Jessie, you're doing a thing, congrats. I'll be like, can I promote them? And so if you watch that live stream, like half the time on the live stream, I'm just like, you all talk about what you do, because I want them to be promoted. Because yeah, I mean that's what I hope the whole thing is going to be. Like I'm really earnestly excited to make Identities. Like it's going to be, I think it's going to be cool. I'm excited about making it, not just because I wrote it, just because I think like it's something that I would want to see if I wasn't making it. But even beyond that, like. I just, like I said, the reason I wanted to work with Erin is she is like dead set on being like, we are going to make this with queer women, like a full crew of like queer folks and women and people of color. And like, that's awesome, because I want this to be like, not just a thing to be like, look, here's representation on the camera, but like actually like uplift people who would not have gotten the chance to make a cool thing. I don't want to say otherwise, because everyone we're going to be working with is going to be incredibly talented, but like getting to work on something that I think we're all really excited about. So like, that's something that I am really stoked about.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing, and yeah, and we're happy to plug it and put it out there too. Anything else, Joe?
No, just again, thank you, Jessie, for taking the time to come on our show. I know some scheduling can be tough, and we appreciate your time and appreciate your thoughts and your takes, and being willing to hang out with us for a little while.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for peek behind the curtain to listeners. YouTube rescheduled for me at the very last minute because of everything that was going on with Identities. Like, I was originally planning on recording this past weekend with you both, and then everything happened with Identities, and I had literally no time to watch the episodes until this week. So I appreciate you being so flexible.
Well, I mean, that's a great reason. And also, like, we have 2 small children, so we often have to be the person asking to reschedule. So, it's a back and forth thing. So not a problem. We made it happen, and this was great.
We did the thing. We did it.
And yeah, I mean, and if you ever, we'd be happy to have you back on in the future for sure.
Yes, please have me on. I will adore talking more Star Trek.
Absolutely. Well, thanks to everyone listening to the episode. Speaking of plugging ourselves, we do have a Twitter account at DSLovePod. Otherwise, please rate and review if you can. And otherwise, we will see you next time, or you'll hear us next time. So live, love, I always mess it up. Love long and prosper.